the legends. James Greenfield from Emergent Leaders Foundation here. So I just thought I'd drop in and talk a little bit about conflict and realistically its essence. And as the title of the video stipulates, that all conflict comes from a form of attachment. Attachment like that you need something to occur a certain way, or any form of attachment. Some of the common ones, like I need to be right. How many times have you been in a conversation and one of you in the conversation just won't let go of the argument because, why? They have a need to be right. If you actually have a look at that, drill down into it, what does a need to be right? Well, it's actually a need not to be wrong. And why can't you be wrong? It's because being wrong is labelled as guilty and shameful. And then you keep going down that cycle. It's called the judgment cycle, if anyone knows anything about it. And you go down that cycle and right into it, and you'll feel this deep murk. And it's a real powerless position, and powerlessness is the actual underlying thing of all trauma. So a deep desire not to be wrong. So I have to be right. Can't even say that I'm wrong. Now, even have a look at the court of law. When you go into a court of law in Australia and around the Western world, we operate supposedly under this thing called innocent until proven guilty. That's incorrect, because you cannot plead innocent in a court of law. You actually can only plead not guilty. And when something goes into the mind through the left hemisphere, through the corpus callosum into the right hemisphere, where the memory banks is, that statement, only one aspect of the statement will be dropped off, and that is the not, and it just leaves the guilt. And so a person just feels like they are guilty, and it's why it's so much fear by an average person going to a court of law, because they already feel judged. Yes, that would require an incredible systemic change to our judicial system, but I'm not going to go down that road. But the whole point is it just explains as to why people don't want to be anything but right. Well, a lot of people don't want to. So that attachment causes a conflict just in a certain conversation. Then you go on to, say, a workplace situation or a family situation, and someone has to have it happening a certain way. Now, one of the biggest leadership maxims, which I reckon is the biggest crock of shit going around, is lead by example. More often than not, in all the leadership work I've seen in my time, lead by example has been an excuse to say, do it my way. Do it my way or the highway. Well, lead by example is a beautiful maxim in its purest form. Don't get me wrong, but the shadow side of people's personality, especially leaders, comes out by lead by example, do it my way, and not question as to why it's being done that way. Questioning on that type of front in a constructive way, in an open, non-judgmental sense, actually leads to organic growth within people, within organisations, within families, whoever it is. Now, conflict will stifle that growth if done in a normal way. Conflict can be a precursor to change. Anger as an emotion is a surface emotion. Anger will often come up in conflict because it's screaming to us for change. It's saying this situation is about to violate my personal boundaries, or they have been violated already, or the expectations of the world that I have are not currently being met. So it's energizing my system for change. That doesn't mean to say anger needs to spill over into conflict, because anyone who's done any work in, say, the warrior archetype will know that a warrior never acts in emotion. That's why a warrior is seen as almost emotionless. But they don't understand, to get to a point of emotionlessness, if that's a word, emotionlessness, you have to have gone through, you have to have transcended that emotion, you have to have gone right through, risen above it, understand what it's saying, and then be able to act with that educative perspective on what I therefore need to do for. And so I've got anger, I need to change something, be that the way I think, the way I am acting, or the situation I'm within. So anger's not calling to conflict. Anger's calling to change. Whether or not you spill it over into conflict is your choice as perspective. And that all is about how much work you've done on the inside. So you have a think about all the conflicts you've got going in life, and you might say, oh, I don't have any conflicts. That's awesome. That's epic. You're just living a blissful life. Generally, when we actually have a look at it, there is some form of disruption within our life. And that can indicate a level of conflict. And that conflict is directly related to an attachment in some way, shape or form, generally to a perspective that you hold. Be that the way it has to be done, the way a situation has to be viewed, all these different things. But that attachment is the source of the conflict. So you go into that attachment, you own it. You really, really own it. Owning it, identifying it is the first stage always. Then owning it means that I can take personal responsibility, and then I can start understanding it to go into the healing process, which then would take me to the fifth stage, which would be the transcendence through the ability to actually move higher than it and then integrate it and bring it back into my life. They're the 6 stages of what I refer to in our men's program, Elysium, as, the pure, actually, it's in our leadership program, purifying myself. I need to firstly identify it, own it, understand it, heal it, transcend it, and then integrate it. Coming back to this conflict thing, is when I understand this attachment, then I can really ask the deep question, what's the attachment serving? What am I getting out of it in this moment? I've got to be really, really honest with myself, get through this denial bullshit and go right to the core of it. Well, how is it really, really serving me? And this, anyone who's done any shadow work will understand, this is unearthing your unconscious programming that is holding you stuck, and there will always be an emotion attached to that belief system or program, subconscious program, etc. It'll always be an emotion attached to it. So you release the emotion by experiencing it, going into it, owning it and experiencing it, and then you reevaluate and you can reframe the way you look at it. It's a really, really powerful process. So, a great example that's been really current on my, in my personal world is I looked at Kirsten, my relationship. We've been going through this incredible transformation over the last 2 years of just radical ownership of everything, allowing after 23 years of being together, allowing each other to stand on the threshold of the home and saying, which way do you want to go? In or out? Let your heart decide, not your head. So it's been this incredible radical ownership. And I witnessed that what I'd done to Kirsty is not seeing her completely. I was seeing a silhouette of her, and that silhouette was all these partial belief systems or full belief systems of my relationship to the feminine in my world. Because remember, Kirsty is my deepest, strongest feminine reflection in the world. And so anything that I have in relation to that aspect of myself, the feminine aspect of myself, will come up through my relationship to her. Excuse me. And so one of the things I realized is at times we just get into this, like when she'd ask me a question, I'd respond in a heated response, or she would ask me in a way in which had heat in it. And so then what I could see transpire is quickly a conflict in that conversation, which didn't need to be there, because I could simply witness, if I chose, I could simply witness the heat and choose not to engage. But the heat was a protection mechanism in me. Why did I have that need to protect? Good question. Because of a belief that I wasn't good enough in my service to the feminine. And because my purpose on the planet is to serve the feminine. Anyone understands the work that I do? It's just always flows out to serve, be of service to the feminine in its deepest sense. So that personal belief, restricting it, what do I get out of holding that belief? Well, I get to allow myself to keep small or in a comfort zone. Just allow myself to only move in certain patterns which, don't allow me to fully hit my potential, which is fascinating for anyone like for me, because I love being on the threshold. I love being on the edge of that cliff and right at the edge of it, that exhilarating point where I'm pushing myself. And so to witness this was to just witness another anchor within my psyche that I'd gone, right, I see you. I see how you've attempted to hold me into a safe place. I don't need you anymore. And so I can release you and I can be of better service to the feminine. It's just a case in point about now. I can just witness any heat coming from her and go, I don't need to engage. And therefore conflict disappears, love waltzes in, and everything is harmonic. Remember, all conflict stems from an attachment. Own it, do something about it, roses come. Love you long time. Bye.